Hello, this is BSJ, and this is going to be a different type of video where I'm going to be analyzing a 3K level game that I've been playing on my Smurf climb that is really meant to show you many different things about split pushing and map awareness, but something that really ties into one of the most distinguishable skill difference indicators for any level of play between a 7K and 5K player, between a 7K and a 3K player. It's just one of those things that ties in a lot of aspects of Dota that are really, like, it just shows so much when it comes to split pushing and map awareness. So what I'm going to start off with is the factors that go into these ideas and why they're so important and why they show so much difference in skill level. And the first thing is to properly understand that there's a lot of things to consider. And this list of things is your win condition in a game. What does your team do well? What does the enemy team do well? I.e. pushing, kill potential, roshing. You have to think about what your team does well. The catch potential of the enemy team. That has a lot to do with your idea of split pushing. Like in this game, I'm a Storm Spirit, so my biggest concern is their ability to kill me if I'm going to split push. So every game, you have to think about what they have to kill you with, or what their hero's potential to kill you with. Some heroes kill you by mobility, like a Storm Spirit. Some heroes, like Legion Commander or OD, kill you by catching you, but they're not very mobile in the first place. So a lot of heroes offer different ways to kill you, and it's recognizing those ways of killing you that is really important part at the beginning of every game to establish your goal as a split pusher, to establish how much you're going to be split pushing, and establish if you want to split push, how you are going to go about doing that. Meaning, are you going to abuse your mobility? Are you going to abuse your survivability? Are you going to abuse how fast you clear creep waves? Are you going to abuse the fact that they don't have mobility? What do they have that kills you? So right away, I'm going to take pause in this game and say, look at their lineup and say, what do they have that kills me? So I really think that the biggest thing that also goes on top of this is if I want to look for solo kills, which is a big part of split pushing, what do I need to be concerned about? Meaning, like, a lot of teams, they have like a dazzle plus like another defensive support, don't really have a way of punishing you for going for kills as long as you have a way out. But on the other hand, this team has Global Silence, they have Astral so the rest of the team can catch up, they have X marks the spot, so if I get caught up by that, if they have Skywrath Mage Silence plus any other hero on their team, I'm probably dead, at least until I get really farmed. So that's one of those things where I look at this game and immediately think, well, it's going to be very hard for me to get solo kills anytime in the first 20 to 30 minutes of the game, unless a unique situation arises, which they're going to be, and we're going to talk about them as they come up. But I'm not going to try to force kills because their team is very defensive, their team is very counter-initiate heavy, and that's something I keep in mind right away as a split pusher. The next thing is they have Duel, they have X marks the spot, they have Silence, and they have Astral. Those are the things that catch me out. So right away, I'm going to think about itemizing against those things and playing around those concepts. None of their heroes have solo kill potential on me. Even like a Legion Commander dueling me, she needs to have like a Skywrath Mage with her. She needs to have an OD hitting me. She needs to have a Kunkka, Torrent, and Debode follow-up. So it's looking at all their heroes. None of them exactly have solo kill potential on me. And that's really important to think about as well. Because as long as I see 4 heroes on the map, or I know that, like, based on map awareness, that if Skywrath Mage was just showing mid, that if Legion Commander's top and the other 3 are showing bottom, that I have a set amount of time before Skywrath Mage gets to my lane and offers kill potential on me. So these are all concepts that go into split pushing and things we're going to be talking about as this game progresses. So pretty much these concepts not only tie into your ability to split push, but concepts that a lot of players at lower levels don't. They understand that it occurs, but they don't do it themselves, is the idea of cutting creep waves. This is something where if you, like, honestly, the prime examples of this are like Eternal Envy and Arteezy in terms of cutting creep waves. But being able to recognize when to cut creep waves is really important based on all the things I just talked about. These decisions and understandings are what make cutting creep waves, like, easier, possible, like, your understanding is just going to be that much greater. And what I mean by that is if I recognize that I can cut a creep wave behind the enemy team as a Storm Spirit because they have to catch up to me first and they don't have a hero that immediately closes the gap other than, like, you know, max blink range, then that will affect my decision to be able to split push. But if they have heroes like Lion that can TP into a tower right away the minute I show myself on this, like on the creep wave, split pushing and cutting the creep wave, and he just blink hexes me and sets up for somebody else to kill me with them, then it makes my ability to cut creep waves much weaker unless Lion's like showing on the map or I know he TP'd somewhere else. But like that, all that being said, I'm looking at this kind of lineup and I think I'm going to probably be able to cut creep waves. And it's all about, as I go on throughout the rest of the game when I'm cutting creep waves and I'm talking about my decision making, it's all about recognizing the ability to do so and why the enemy team can or cannot stop you from cutting creep waves. And the reason why I emphasize cutting creep waves is it's a very integral part of split pushing, because when it comes to split pushing, you have to ask yourself why you're split pushing and what split pushing accomplishes. So that like brings me to another point. So split pushing right off the bat is that you have to recognize you're getting more farm than the enemy team. because you're by yourself. They are generally more grouped up, and what that generally means for you is if they're 5 in one lane and your team is 4 in one lane and you're by yourself, because of how XP share works in this game, you're technically getting twice as much XP and farm around the map than the enemy team is. If your team's together as 4, you're by yourself, and the enemy team's together as 5. So it's one of those things where that's what split pushing really does for you, but it also is really important to recognize what it doesn't do for you. A lot of heroes that are good at split pushing are high mobility, high survivability, and that's because it's like if you're a drow, meaning like it doesn't mean a drow can't split push, but if you're a drow and a PA finds you and throws a dagger at you, unless you have a shadow blade and they have no detection, you are going to die. That's just life. That's how it happens. Let's just take a second to laugh at my death to neutrals there. But yeah, so what I mean by that is like, Drow's not a particularly good split pusher because if one of the 2 heroes find her, a lot of combinations kill her. But heroes like Storm Spirit, Ember Spirit, Slark, Naga, they can all push lanes safely for whatever reason. Naga has illusions, Storm Spirit has high mobility with his ball lightning, Slark has Dark Pact plus all of his escapability, Ember Spirit has his Remnant, Morphling has Replicates. Like all these heroes that can split push, Anti-Mage has Blink, have high escapability and survivability, and it makes it so that more heroes are required to kill them, meaning higher coordination. It makes it easier to move around the map. Like if it only takes 1 hero to kill you, it's much harder to split push because you have to worry about whenever that hero is off the map. But the big thing here is noticing how at the beginning of the game I recognized I don't have high kill potential on them because of their ability to counter initiate. So look at how I behaved in the first, after 6 minutes, after the laning stages happen. I'm just farming. That's like an important thing to recognize. In some games, you'll have to go for kills. But in this game in particular, I'm just farming. So we're going to bring up the net worth for the sake of you being able to monitor this as I go along in this replay. But I'm just farming. Like, maybe I'll do little things like I'm doing right now, but I'm just going to be farming. I'm looking to extend my lead as much as possible. And you're going to notice here that I even go for a kill, and that's what ends up happening. You saw right there. I was like trying to force the limits, seeing if I could kill this OD because I had a Drought Aura, and that's like a perfect example of I go for the kill on OD, I get Astral, Legion Commander TP's in, and I get dueled. And that's like exactly the fear I had, and that's basically me going against my own knowledge of the game and getting punished for it. And that's like an important thing to recognize. And you're going to see how right after that I'm like, oh yeah, dumb me. I'm just going to go back to farming until I have the proper items to get the kills or, go for solo kills that I talked about at the beginning of this replay. So basically we're going to be fast forwarding all the way till about 16 minutes where I want to show you the first example of recognizing how game awareness and knowledge of what the enemy team's information is giving to you allows you to get kills that most players in 3K, as well as anywhere, like, the strength of people's ability to do this increases with their MMR. It's very drastic when you see it once you understand it as a 7K player, and maybe as you guys are watching, it's very clear how this is such a strong distinguishment between 3K and 7K players. And that whole concept of is understanding the information that is being presented to you by the enemy team. But not only that, but also if you're, say, on the Dire, recognizing what information I have about them. And what I mean by that is if you're going to see it coming up right here in just a second. I'm going to be going back to base. I'm going to be going back to top. And this is my first example. So right away, I go on this silencer. And we're going to rewind because I didn't mean for it to be this fast. I'm going to go on this silencer. And this silencer is farming alone. So that's just a perfect example of him not recognizing what information I am being presented with on the other team as a Storm Spirit. If I look at the map, I see OD mid, and I see the other 3 bottom. And this silencer is far enough away from a tower. I know that if I go on him, I'll have time to kill him before his team is able to help him. And he doesn't see this. This would be completely different if anyone on the enemy team wasn't showing. If Skywrath Mage wasn't showing, if Kunkka wasn't showing, if Legion Commander wasn't showing, he could possibly be doing this. Because what if I go on him and the Skywrath Mage is right behind him, or the Legion Commander is right behind him, she blink duels me, I get global, they TP other people in, and I die. But because I see everyone on the enemy team, I immediately go for this kill. And it's really important to recognize as a 3K player the mistakes you're making. It's not just about what you know, it's also recognizing what the other team knows. And that's by, right now, I'm telling you that I see all 4 other heroes on the map. So if I go on the silencer and for some reason can't kill him, worst case scenario, I just walk away. And that's like an important decision making as a split pusher. What's the worst thing that can happen if I go for this kill, if I go for this creep wave cut? Like sometimes it's like worst case scenario I mess up and I die. Sometimes it's worst case scenario I mess up and I lose all my mana as like a Storm Spirit and I have to go back to base. But right now, worst case scenario, I walk away. So I'm going to go on him. I'm going to get the kill. And here's what's going to happen. This is something that's very common when you go for kills as a split pusher. The enemy team's TPing in. You see on the minimap, they TP 2 people in. Right now, I see that OD's getting gone on in the mid lane. You know, I'm not going to move my camera, but you saw OD getting gone on the mid lane. And Legion Commander is bottom. So now I know, in my knowledge, that if there's people reacting, it could possibly only be the two supports, being Kunkka and Skywrath. So I see Skywrath chasing after me. I see Kunkka behind him. And right away, I see the Kunkka separate from the Skywrath. And I know that this Skywrath mage alone does not offer him kill potential on me. And this is important. Like, I know Legion Commander's not there, and I know OD's not there. So I know that the Kunkka's the only help. And now I see Kunkka running around the trees. I see that it's going to take him. He's going to try to cut me off. So I'm immediately just going to turn back onto this Skywrath mage and kill him. And that's something where, like, you know, a lot of 3K players, this doesn't happen unless there's a high distinguishment in skill level between players. Like, I can do this in my 5K average games. It happens a lot if you watch my 5K average games, where, like, or even like Arteezy in a 5K average game. You'll see him just like do these kind of plays where you're like, what is the enemy team doing? They're just giving him kills. But that's like what it means to like the decision making. All the like that going into those kills was all me recognizing what I knew about them and them playing the game in a wrong way. Like, that's how you recognize if someone's out of position. It's not just that what you know about the game, but it's like if you know that they know that you know. Meaning, like, I know that sounds weird, but I know that that silencer knows that if he has the knowledge to know that I know where his teammates are. Like, if he chooses to think about it. There's no secret that his Legion Commander is showing bottom and his OD showing mid and the other three heroes are showing bottom. An example, like a counterexample to what I just talked about, me knowing that he knows that I know, is like, say, like, the Legion Commander is jungling. He may not know that I know where the Legion Commander is, but she could be under a ward of mine. So that's an example where I know where the Legion Commander is, and I know that he's by himself, but he may not know that I know that he's by himself. And I know that's like a lot of knowing, but like my point being is like that's something that's really important to think about, because at high levels it's like, you know, the higher you go, the more mind games set in, and that's why like jungling heroes like Slark, even after getting a Shadow Blade, may be more effective than farming lanes at times if you don't have to, because you just simply present a threat to the enemy team. And a lot of times when you hear like 5K level players and above, and streamers especially, raging at their teammate Axe or like teammate Legion Commander for like farming a creep wave when they shouldn't have to show their hero, it's because they're like, wow, like you're telling the enemy team like we're here so they can go farm the rest of the map. So that's like an important part of split pushing. You know, I said like the common 3-game mistakes is you have to think about what the information the other team has and make a lot of your decisions off that. So Silencer choosing to stay top after knowing that I have that information is him basically not having map awareness. That's basically what we're seeing right there. So like I already mentioned, basically if Legion was off the map instead of showing bottom, I could not go for that kill on Silencer. But because they're all showing, I'm recognizing that I have the kill potential to do so. So this next example, which is going to be coming up, is understanding how long it takes people to rotate. So right now I see their heroes in the mid lane. I see 3 heroes and I see 1 TPing in. And, you know, it's one of those things where Skywrath Mage isn't going to be solo farming. Like, if you just, like, based on my understanding of Dota, the 4 heroes I see are those, and the one I don't see is Skywrath Mage. And he's just not going to be solo farming, period. He's going to be, like, somewhere in the vicinity of the enemy team. If it's, like, the other hero that wasn't showing was an anti-mage, he's probably farming. It's all thinking about, you know, what hero is missing. So, right away, I'm farming this jungle camp. And I'm not 100% sure if they have wards, but let's find out if they do. Let's find out if they have wards. They don't have any wards. That is important. But at the same time, they see my teammate Slark top, and they have a ward in my jungle, so they know I'm not bottom. Like, if you look at their knowledge of the game, they don't know where I am. Or they know where I am because they don't see me, is the best way to word it. They don't see me farming bottom. They don't see me in my own woods. I'm not an Ancienting because I'm a Storm Spirit, and so the only place I can be is above them. So they're going to immediately run towards me. And this is me recognizing how long it's going to take them to get there. So I'm farming this camp, and I see them immediately head towards me. You're going to see all their arrows just run to me. I have this camp right here to farm as well. So at 17:12, I'm recognizing that I have about 10 to 15 seconds before they're going to get to me. So I'm immediately ball lightning to this wave. I have to get out of here as fast as I can. I don't even kill the catapult, noticing that I recognize exactly how long I have before they get to me. It's been about 12 seconds. So instead of immediately TPing out, I wait for them to get close enough to me that I wasted all their time. Notice how the Silencer, the Skywrath Mage, all ran top. And I TP bottom immediately. And this is one of those things where that push top is going to open me up to push bottom. If I never did that push top, they could easily have 2 heroes, 3 heroes setting up on the bottom lane ready to kill me here. So because I know that I have time before they get back to bottom based on travel time, based on TPing, and I see them on the map right now, the Skywrath Mage and the Kunkka. Something that should really never occur. 2 supports showing themselves in a lane. Very common 3K mistake, even 5K mistake, is, you know, they're not getting anything out of showing here. Like, one of them is going to get the farm, period. They're going to get the same amount of XP, but by having both of them show, I feel perfectly safe farming bottom lane. Something to really think about as a support player, as any like off-lane hero with kill potential, is there's no reason to show 2 heroes with kill potential in the exact same lane. Absolutely no reason. But as my hero, I feel absolutely safe to continue farming bottom. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And it's like, this is me recognizing the limitations of the enemy team in regards to mobility, knowing that if I go top, they're going to take a little while to come back bottom. But now they're all off the map. So I go back to jungling. Notice how I no longer feel safe in the lane, because as right there you recognize that this guy with Mage was off the map. He TP'd bottom and he shows himself. It's like even weaker for him to show himself as a 3K player. A 7K Skywrath would have TP'd bottom potentially and then not shown himself in lane, so I still don't know where he is. Which is like means that he could have TP'd bottom. It means he could have smoked from their jungle and ran into me in my jungle. But by showing bottom, he gives me the information that I need to do what I need to do as a split pusher. So sometimes when you're watching high-level players or players that are streaming, you'll see them go wonky builds, like items that you generally wouldn't build. In almost every game of Storm Spirit, like in a 7K game, I would be going Treads Orchid after my Bloodstone. But the problem in here is that I'm recognizing, quite honestly, that my teammates aren't very good, and that I'm going to have to split push to win this game. So the first item I build right after Bloodstone is Yules. And if you look at the enemy team, Skywrath Mage Silence, Global Silence, Kunkka X can be dodged by Yules. I immediately remove 3 heroes from their team as a threat by building 1 item. And that's like the whole idea that I'm going with, because I know I have to split push. So this is what I talked about at the beginning of the video, itemization. Normally I'd go Treads Orchid because I want to fight them, I want to look for solo kills. But I already recognize that my solo kill potential is low because of the nature of their lineup and counter initiation, and that my win condition is by split pushing and not dying. So once again, I forced out bottom lane, and then I go immediately back to top. And this is an example right here that I get asked about on stream all the time. And people ask me, do I go to the lane first or do I go to the creep camp? And there's a lot of factors that go into this, and I'm just going to present one of them today. That's by far the most simple and should really guide a lot of your decisions. And it's something where, just like every rule in Dota is correct like 95% of the time, and the exceptions are what it means to truly understand the game. But we're going to give you the simple answer, and in other videos we'll go more into this concept. Whether or not I go farm the lane or if I farm the creep camp first. So the most basic answer for why I farm the creep camp first here is looking at the timer. If I go straight to the lane, I am going to farm the lane, and then it's going to be about 19 minutes. And you have to recognize, whenever you're pushing an off lane like this, almost every time you'll have time to farm the jungle, like right afterwards. You're going to push the top lane in, or bottom lane if you're on Dire, and then you're going to have time to farm the jungle. So I'm thinking about the time I'm going to be farming the jungle after I farm the creep wave. If I go straight to the creep wave right now, then I'm going to be farming 1 big camp, because it's 1850. But if I clear the big camp right now, and go to the lane next, I'll have farmed the big camp now, and then the big camp's going to spawn again in 10 seconds, and then I'll farm it again on the way back. So that's really the simple reason why I just decided to do this. If it was 1830, for instance, in the game right now, I would go clear that top wave first because it's more dangerous farm, and then I would walk back, clear the big camp at 1850 or so, and then let it spawn again and clear it again. But that's what I mean by it's just a simple way of deciding, but it's something you should think about every time you're wondering, should I go to lane first? Should I farm a creep camp first? Should I stack it? Check the timer. And that's my decision right here. So you're going to notice I farm the creep camp, go immediately to the wave, and then it's going to be the 19-minute mark, so I now farm the 2 creep camps again. So the next decision that has to be made is, generally speaking, what jungling does for you is that it gives you something to do while you don't have information that presented to you to split push safely. So for instance, if there was no fight going on mid here, so I didn't feel safe to continue pushing top, then I would have immediately gone back to the big camp. That's what I would have done, because I don't know where they are, and it's a safe place to farm. I have a ward, I'll be able to see them coming. All these reasons make it very safe for me. But now, the second I see them fighting bottom, or in the mid lane, excuse me, I immediately head right back to top, knowing that top is the more dangerous farm. So while they're fighting, I want to get that out of the way. So I immediately clear the creep wave. See how they're TPing in right after the fight ended. If I had gone to the jungle camp first, then I wouldn't be able to farm top because of the fact that they would be able to stop me because the fight's already over. So notice how I forced the reactions top by having pushed the wave during the fight, and then I go immediately back to bottom. So we're going to go and fast forward a bit, and I want to show you, basically the next concept is going to present creep cutting. So right away, this is a first example of creep cutting. So a lot of times when you're creep cutting, especially at the higher level, you have to understand why players are doing it, and a lot of times it's because they have no other option. I'm always playing around my TP cooldown. Notice how I TP bottom, pushed out the wave, went for like a brief kill on the Legion Commander, didn't get it, but now, if I just walk back to mid, for instance, I already have a hero there, I have the Necro, they're not there, I have nothing to do, my TP's on cooldown, I'm not going to walk all the way top, I'm on a TP top, so I'm not going to walk all the way top, I've already farmed out most of the jungle, and somebody's already mid. So this is a time where I have nothing else to do other than cut the creep wave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait in the trees, waiting for me to get the knowledge of Legion Commander. And this is me recognizing that Legion Commander cannot kill me. So let's just check out her items for the sake of doing it. She has a Shadow Blade, and I knew this. But the idea behind it is it's not a Blink Dagger. So I know that she's limited by, she has to run at me. She has to run at me in order to kill me. So I see that she shows in lane, and I immediately recognize her limitations on killing me, and I walk past her, just cutting this creep wave, trying to kill it as much as possible. I ball lightning and get out. And cutting creep waves effectively delays pushing, it effectively gets you more farm, and the whole idea is look at their pushing bottom. Like, that's what they're doing. A lot of times when they have heroes grouped up like that, they're pushing bottom. Like, they're pushing together. So by cutting the creep wave, even if I delay that push by 20 seconds, that's massive in terms of my split pushing potential. That 20 seconds is, if they're pushing, that 20 seconds is not one hero's time of 20 seconds. That is the entire enemy team's together, which is a ton of time. That's like me spending 20 seconds to waste a minute and a half of the enemy team's time, which is just integral part of split pushing, understanding how much time you're spending from the other team and how much of your own time you're spending to do it. So notice how I'm just going between waves while I'm split pushing. Like, that is a very crucial part of split pushing, just between waves all the time. They have an Aegis where we don't really want to fight them, and that's just like, they're going to try to push down a lane. Like, that's what they want to do. They got an Aegis, they're going to group up. So I'm doing what I can to push waves. Notice how right now, I have no knowledge on the map. Obviously, OD just showed bottom, but I could have gone bottom and farmed. But I have no knowledge of what was happening. Like, in terms of, like, I have no idea where they are. They're not farming any lanes. And honestly, at 3K, it's sometimes hard to predict what people are doing because, like, they just have different mindsets than you. So notice how I farm the jungle. That's what the jungle is for. Safe farm when you don't know what the enemy team's doing. I immediately recognize all of them are bottom. So I get out, and what I do, I resume pushing other lanes as quickly as possible, keeping them out to avoid having to fight them. If the lanes aren't pushed, then the enemy team can't do anything. Simply put, you have to think about what their objective is. They have an Aegis, they want to group up and push. Or sorry, they're about to get the Aegis and group up and push. But the fact is, I can't fight them. If you look at their lineup, look at my team, like, look at the net worths. I have the highest net worth barely, but the rest of my team virtually has no net worth. So it's one of those things where I'm immediately recognizing, I see a fight going on mid. Notice how I see a fight going on mid. And this is an example where they have an Aegis. They started the fight by killing my Dazzle, or sorry, by killing my Slark, and I just can't fight here. So I notice that I have this much time before they're going to get to my wave. So what do? Instead of going to the fight, I immediately TP to the bottom lane. So we're going to go ahead and go back to my player perspective, play it out. So an important part of split pushing is understanding when you actually have to fight. So right now, my team's dead. I can't fight. So I'm going to get as much as I can off the map, which is pushing bottom. The enemy team is pushing mid. I'm checking their TPs. I'm checking their items. I'm checking, like, you know, mana pools. And I'm going to recognize that if they continue to push, I have to fight them. Why? Because they're pushing our high ground. My team's going to be alive. And I know that if they're going to push high ground, I can't just let them take my base. So I immediately TP back to base. And this is something that's really important as a split pusher. Remember what I talked about when I said what makes a good split pusher? High mobility, high kill potential, weak team fight. Is generally like a combination of all these split pushers. Maybe heroes like Naga are exceptions to the team fight rule. But overall, that's like the general concept of split pushers. So what split pushers excel at all these high mobility split pushers is they punish overextensions, they have great kill potential, and they have great chase potential. So notice how I'm letting the enemy team overextend, which happens a lot even at the 7K level. And the minute that happens, I TP back to base, and we force a fight. So notice how I decide to fight here. I have had no Bloodstone losses or add-ons since I got it at 16 minutes. No kills have happened, or deaths for me. So immediately we get a kill, or we get 2 kills, sorry, stop the push, and I go right back to farming, right back to what I was doing. That is the most important aspect of this, right back to what I was doing. Recognizing that the knowledge I have is superior to theirs, meaning like I know that Legion by herself, because I saw that the OD was low, I saw the silencer was low, I saw them on the map, and so her farming the lane gave me that opportunity to solo kill her. The other 2 heroes were dead, and the 2 heroes that were alive were low. So that's like another example of what I talked about early on in the game, of going for a solo kill when the information is presented to you. Solo kills don't just happen. It's not luck. It's all about calculating and thinking about what the enemy team can do to stop you, or where their heroes are at, who's alive, who has mana to stop you, all these things, how long it's going to take them to get there. All these factors go into split pushing. So notice how I'm going to force them to the bottom lane. See how I see them walking all towards me, something very common at the 3k level. I ball lightning backwards, they're chasing me, and I TP straight to the lane that I deem as safe. Legion Commander's top, I just want to push out mid. So I'm going to basically TP mid, and then I'm going to head my way to top, because of the fact that I saw them all bottom. That's just a logical progression. I saw them all bottom, so I TP'd mid, and I made my way to the other side of the map, knowing that their limitation in this specific game is mobility, and that's my advantage. So like in some heroes, I would have gone mid and maybe back to bottom, because I can't abuse mobility, but in this particular game, that's what I'm doing. So notice how my next item is Linken's. I'm recognizing I can't fight them virtually with no items that I buy. I would have to have too many items. I'd have to have like Orchid, BKB, and another item like Shiva's to fight them. So instead, I'm just building the items that remove threats. Now, my first item, Yule's, removed all the silences and Kunkka X. Now, Linken's removes dual, astral setup, and even X setup, even if I don't want to use the Yule's for that. So that just removes all their ability to kill me. Like basically as a split pusher, and you're going to notice that occur throughout the rest of the game. And so some people ask, like, BSJ, why do you buy bots in this specific game? Like going into my item choices. And it's like after we win a few fights, I'm recognizing my win condition. No one on my team is doing their job to push waves. Like that's just, I hate to say it, that's just the fact of the matter. And that's the important part. It's like not only recognizing what your teammates' heroes do, but also recognizing what your teammates are doing with their heroes. I'm recognizing, looking at my teammates' farm, that none of them have anything, and generally that means they're not farming the waves. So I know that I have to push waves more than I normally would be able to. And the only way I can do that is to have the bots. The bots allow me higher move speed to get around the map, and they also allow my TP to be on a lower cooldown. 45-second cooldown is much different than 70-second cooldown, and it gives me many more options in order to my mobility around the map, where I can farm, how often I can TP somewhere in case I have to help my team, all these factors. So the enemy team's grouping up mid. Notice what I do to stop it. I have to have my presence, meaning that I have to be here in order to stop them from pushing, but I'm not committing to anything. Just kind of kiting them around. Just having a fight that is long drawn out at the benefit of a split pushing type hero, and manage to get 2 more kills. And most importantly, stop the push, going right back to what I was doing before. So we're going to go ahead and fast forward, showing how I immediately just go back to farming as much as possible. Waves, creeps, anything I can get done. Moving around the map. So we're going to quickly jump to about 38 minutes into the game. And this is going to be a crucial part of the game. On a side note, I end up trying to snipe the Aegis and I miss it. But when people get the Aegis, you have to ask yourself what they're trying to do with it. So this is basically a discussion I'm going to make about the Aegis. So you have to ask, what does it offer the enemy team in each particular game? In this case, it offers them the ability to group up and push high ground. Therefore, I have to delay this as long as possible. That is my objective mentality. If they have no creeps, then they cannot push. Their catch potential on me is absolutely no different than it was before. For example, counter example of this, if the enemy team has a Storm Spear with Aegis, then it would offer more catch potential on me because he can expend all of his mana in order to kill me in exchange for losing his own Aegis. Like that's an example where maybe an Aegis gives them more kill potential on you because he can be more aggressive, but with their lineup, it offers them the ability to push and nothing else. So even though I end up... Okay, so the next part we're going to say is, moving on from this, is once the Aegis is down, you're going to notice that I recognize that all I have to do is stop them from pushing. All I have to do is stop them from grouping up and pushing. I managed to get a solo kill on the Kunkka, and right away I go to cutting the creep wave. I see a fight going on, and I'm just like, if they win the fight, I have to make sure they get nothing out of it. So with no creeps, they can't get anything. I cut their mid lane, I TP top, and if you look at the lane equilibrium, look what they can get accomplished. And the answer is absolutely nothing. I have all this time, because I cut that creep wave, before they're able to push my mid lane. That is basically what I did by cutting that creep wave. I bought time. Notice how I see them mid, and I cut the next creep wave, and immediately run to the bottom lane. And I use the illusion rune to even cut the creep waves again in the mid lane. You're going to see it cut the next wave. Excuse me, poor micro. And notice here how their only objective is to group up and push. But because of what I'm doing, they cannot do so. So you're going to see something peculiar happen to me here. And this is the creep wave cut. And what I mean by that is also what's going to follow. But recognizing that they're all pushing bottom. And I have to stop them. Like, I have to stop them from pushing. I have to stall as long as I can. And just like before, the same answer. I can't just run into them and fight, period. That's just not going to happen. Drow's not there. Their silencer's still useful. I just have to stop them from pushing. And that's by bursting down the creep wave they currently have and running right past them, recognizing their limitations, and cutting their creep wave. This is how I stop them from grouping up. Notice how they are immediately forced to stop grouping. And when they're stopped grouping, the silencer who's by himself, who before saw me bottom and knew he should be safe, and now I was, on his side of the map, who's still alone, I'm able to get a simple, straightforward solo kill on the silencer and walk away and continue doing what I need to do. And that's like the difference between, a 3K player and a 7K player. I push out top, and then I immediately go bottom, get the tower, forcing them to separate. They have an Aegis, they have stronger team fight, but by doing my split pushing, they are not able to make use of either of these things. They can't team fight us, and they can't use the Aegis to push, period. Notice how I just keep cutting waves. Before in the game, I was farming a lot of jungle camps on my way between waves, but in here I'm recognizing my sole purpose is to stop them from grouping, and the only way I can do that is by pushing all these waves. Forcing them to chase me around, trying to stop me. Their only way to push lanes is by stopping me. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to end up dying, and you're going to see it here. I overextend just slightly, but here's the key thing. Even though I overextend just slightly and get picked off, let's pause. I'm going to respawn in 50 seconds. My team's already pushing out mid. I forced all of them to stop me at bottom. Like, there's 3 heroes in the bottom lane, 2 of which are their primary pushers between the Legion and OD, even though neither of those are amazing pushers. Look at their lanes. And what I mean by that is, are they going to be able to accomplish anything? Bottom lane's pushed out. My team's going to push out this wave. And top lane's pushed out. So even though I died, I'm still doing my job. Like, if you look, I'm not going to be forced to buy back. They're not going to be able to group up and push. They're not going to get anything done. Like, yeah, they got me killed, which is a start, but now they have to kill me again. That's what they have to do. So obviously I'm waiting until I respawn. My Slark has died again, but I just go right back to what I was doing. They're still not pushing our towers. They're not grouping up. They're not able to get anything accomplished. So I go right back to what I was doing before I died. This OD clearly is not very happy about how this game is going. So right now, that's a key rewind. That's something we have to see. So I saw OD was top, recognizing that there's no way he actually TP bottom and was there in time. I saw Legion Commander mid just a second ago, and even if Skywrath Mage is behind Kunkka, because of the items I currently have, he can't save them. So the 2 heroes that can save him, Legion Commander and OD, I know are not there. So I immediately go for this solo kill, and I am able to get it. So just like that, I recognize, like, even though I don't see the Skywrath Mage or the Silencer, because of the items I currently have, all I care about were the Legion Commander and the OD. And that's an important distinction as you go along throughout the game, understanding your items, enemy items, that make it so they're a threat or no longer a threat, based on whatever the matchup is. Like, for instance, the most basic one is Storm Spirit Orchid and Anti-Mage Manta. The minute Storm Spirit gets an Orchid, he's a threat, but the minute Anti-Mage gets a Manta, Storm Spirit no longer is. That's like a very simple, straightforward example of what I'm just talking about. So I'm just fast forwarding, showing you how I am simply cutting all the creep waves and making that my sole purpose in this game. So we're going to see quickly another example show up at 47 minutes. And this is something where people ask me, what do I do when my teammates are feeding and they're just dying? They run into fights and they just die. And this is the best way I can address in one particular example of how to behave when your teammates are doing just that. So right now you're going to see my teammates. They choose to take a very bad fight. I go into the fight trying to get a help on a solo kill, or helping to kill the Kunkka, bringing him down, recognizing there's no way I'm going to kill the Legion, no way I'm going to kill the Outworld Devourer. So I try to kill the Kunkka, immediately recognize that I can't. But notice how before the fight started, I pushed out mid. And right after the fight ends, I go straight to pushing bottom. I don't care that all my teammates are dead. Look at all my teammates are dead. That's unfortunate. There was nothing I could do about it. So I pushed out bottom. I tried to go for a kill on Silencer, but simultaneously I pushed out the mid lane. And look at what the enemy team's accomplishing. And the answer is absolutely nothing. Like, they killed 4 heroes on my team, which sucks. Like, yeah, they got all the net worth from that. Like, if you look at the net worth, like, they're still way ahead of my team with their other 2 cores. But I just stopped them from grouping up and pushing. And that's all you can do as a split pushing hero. And that's why I talk about heroes like this being much better for solo winning games at the lower levels. Even at the higher levels, like, that's how heroes like this win games by themselves. Like, even though your whole team is dying, you're able to stop the enemy team from grouping just by split pushing. And it's like, I'm always recognizing their goal is to group up and push. So all I have to do is stop that, whether that means killing them, whether that means pushing out lanes, and in this particular game, it's pushing out lanes. And that's all I've been doing. If you even just watching this game on fast forward, what I've been doing for like the last 25 minutes. Constantly expending my mana. I buy a sheep stick. Now I know I have kill potential on most of their heroes. They have ghost scepters on most of their heroes. I go for the immediate solo kill on the Kunkka who's by himself. And I go right back to split pushing. That is all I care about. Split pushing, waves. Making them chase after me. Notice how all this time, like, that's what I'm abusing, my mobility. They are just spending their entire game running after me. So we're going to bring ourselves to one last fight. And needless to say, you know, spoiler alert, we end up winning this game. I had 900 GPM, 850 CS, you know, a pretty crazy game. But this is just showing how, like, you know, you can solo carry games despite, honestly, your team doing virtually nothing. With heroes such as Storm Spirit, high split pushing heroes. These are the ones that you can win games with. Not every game, but you can win a lot of games that are unwinnable. So we're going to show here the next example. We semi-lost a fight. Like, 3 of my heroes are dead. They technically have the heroes they need to push, and I'm the only one there to stop them. I know I have a Slark, but he has no ulti. So what do? Fight ends. I recognize they're in the mid lane. My side lanes are pushed out. All I have to do is stop them from pushing mid. And what do? Starting to get predictable at this point, isn't it, guys? Cut their creep wave. What can they get done while my team is dead? And the answer is absolutely nothing. Cut their next creep wave. My other lanes are pushed out. Boom. Like, you see their hero. You see their Legion Commander in this mid lane trying to push, but it doesn't matter. She can't do anything. And I use my sheep stick to just sheep stick the OD and TP away. And now that I see the ODs there, I know Legion Commander's by herself, and she just dies. By split pushing, by doing what I did, I forced them to separate and was able to accomplish what I needed to get done. And, like, you know, spoiler alert, like I said, we end up winning this game, but all the key points I wanted to make are over. I've shown you everything I wanted to show you about common 3K mistakes between a map awareness and talking about my decision making with kills and showing how I know what their objective is, and so I need to figure out what my objective is. And a lot of times my objective in a game like this as a split pusher is to stop them from accomplishing theirs. So their objective was to group up and push whenever they had the Aegis because their team fight was stronger. So my objective throughout the entire game was to stop them from doing so, splitting them up and getting kills on heroes like the Legion that just happened there, like the Kunkka I killed a couple times, like the Skywrath Mage that I killed. And those are the kind of kills that happen because of all the calculations and all the setups that I made. They don't just occur. You have to think about separating the enemy team, knowing when they're separate based on the knowledge that they are giving you, and then punishing them with a hero such as Storm Spirit, such as Slark. You know, all these high kill potential solo split pushers. You know, Morphling goes into that category as well. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know, it's a different type of video that I made, and I want to know your feedback on this, and I want to make more. But it's definitely a very complex, you know, concept overall, and it's not the most, you know, straightforward approach that you can give. So let me know on the forums, and I hope to hear back from you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be trying to make more in higher level games as well as on potentially other pro players so that we can see examples of how they handle similar situations with different types of heroes as well as just, you know, their approach to those kind of games. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll hope to hear from you guys on the forums.